So thank you all so much for joining us today for our panel discussion on how to prepare for technical interview. So I'm going to go ahead and let some of our panelists introduce themselves. But we'll start, I guess I'll start with Sammy from Kyndryl. If you could go ahead and introduce yourselves, and then we'll go around. If you can tell us a little bit about what you do at your company, what your role is, and what your company does.
Sure. So nice to meet everyone. I'm Sammy Munch. I am a project manager on our early careers and global talent acquisition team. I work for a company called Kyndryl, and we are a spin-off organization of IBM. So what we primarily do is managed services and IT consulting. So we help companies, solve problems that they have and stay with them and stick with them to help them navigate the solutions to those issues. That's just a little bit about what we do in a nutshell. We are a global company. We have a big presence in the US, UK, India, Japan, but we're in over 60 countries as well too. So just a little bit about me.
So myself, I'm Shiva, the engineering manager for the product name Gen. So I'm part of Broadcom. So we used to be part of CA Technologies. So if you know, like 5 years back, Broadcom acquired a company named CA Technologies. And so Broadcom is a $50 billion turnover company and deals with both the semiconductor and software. It's a 40, 60% of distribution, 40% into software and 60% into the semiconductor. You must have heard about a VMware acquisition recently happened. That's one other major acquisition on the software side. So I'm with CEA Broadcom for last 18 plus years, worked in multiple continents, starting from India to Europe, now in US for the last 5 years. The product that, and then kind of completely in the engineering and management side, managed multiple products in the past, now managing the product named Gen. That's a very heritage product with a heavy customer base across the globe. And I work from the Plano, Texas location. I have a co-located team along with the product management and product ownership and all that. We work from Plano. Nice to meet you guys.
Hello, everybody. My name is Pooja. I have been with Broadcom for over 12 years now, and I have worked in different roles in different locations. Currently, I lead a team of front-end developers, a global team of front-end developers who work on modernizing mainframe applications. So I'm one of the engineering managers for a front-end team. We have folks on my team across different locations in the US and some in Prague as well. Prague, as in Czech Republic, Europe. So it's we have our own set of challenges and a lot of niche skills that we have been able to put together to form this team. So it's been wonderful to lead the team. I've learned something from the team every single day. All of the essential applications, the mission critical applications that run on the mainframe currently. We are working on modernizing those applications and building front end for those web applications. And if there's only the 3270 terminals, the ways of using it before, we are modernizing and building mobile applications, front end applications for that. I am thankful for this opportunity. I'm hoping that we'll have a good interactive session and make it lively and with questions from the students.
My name is Suresh Ramchandran. I'm based in Austin, Texas. Been in Austin for a while, and me along with Erica, who's in the background, we represent Apex FinTech Solutions. So if you look at, I think a lot of people would have not heard the name Apex FinTech Solutions, but we are a fintech platform for other fintech companies. Like if you have a great idea, you're a startup and you want to be in the investment business, then we are the platform that lets you do it or else you have to build all these infrastructure. You should have money, liquid capital in your hand. So we just, I think 70% of our customers are like smaller startup who have emerged. A good story would be Robinhood, who emerged from our platform. So this is what we are. We are a fintech for fintech. We do provide a bunch of APIs for our customers. And me myself, I am in the client developer experience team. That's my team, predominantly based in Austin and Belfast. But what this team provides is a whole bunch of tools, SDKs, API standards for our end customers to integrate with our platform. So, and the Austin office where I work is mainly a lot of folks from our what is called as engineering leadership program as well as internship program. So it's definitely a lot of crew who have just like you guys come in from college into our platform.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you all so much. And what's interesting is so everybody's in tech, but we have a lot of kind of diverse areas everybody's working in. So it's going to be very interesting. So I think we'll just start out by talking about, in general, what kinds of questions or how does a technical interview differ from just a traditional interview? What are the differences and what are the different questions that might be asked?
So the one thing that I would highlight is that usually in before the technical round, there's a screening round where a manager or somebody from the team would want to meet the potential job-seeking candidate to just see if they're the right fit for the team, right? Just in terms of, what is the expectation, what are they looking forward to in the team, and team collaboration and all of that. But when it comes to the next rounds of the interview, which is technical rounds, it's more in terms of what is the day-to-day job requirement. So for example, my team works with, say, React skills, right? We need React, and with React framework comes a set of, it comes with an ecosystem, right? So when you're writing React code, what is the unit testing framework you need to use with that? What is the end-to-end testing framework? What kinds of performance testing do you do? So what we like to ask about in these interviews is that how much of experience and how much they come. We don't expect, again, as a hiring manager, as somebody who's hired more than 10, 12 people so far, I can definitely say that we don't look for exact matching, right? Because we don't expect somebody to get to our team with the exact same tech stack. But then we want to know which, if you have used a different technology, but you understand the concept of performance testing, right? Why does somebody do it? What are the results? What do you do about the reports that get generated? So, I think for technical interviews, the other prominent aspect is also sometimes, being able to explain the project that you have done to somebody in just a few minutes, because technical rounds with each person is about 30 minutes. So being able to articulate about the project that you have worked on or you're passionate about in words such that somebody new understands gives a great impression. So that's another thing I want to highlight.
I think I can agree with almost everything that was mentioned by Pooja. I'll just put it this way, like your career has a progress. You're out of school. You are a fresh man into the industry. What generally, at least what we look for, is there's always talent, there is skills, and then there is aptitude and fit. Okay, so if you look at when you are joining, and the skills may not exactly match, as Pooja said, but do you have the aptitude and the talent for the industry? Are you a problem solver? Are you really like? But as you progress higher, like if I'm looking for somebody with 2 or 3 years of experience, I'm really concentrating more on the skill side because I assume the talent was there in the first place. But it's important to show that you are really interested and your strength is technology. With the projects that you have done. So most of the projects, when you mention it, sometimes you explain what the project is. But in technology, you're trying to see is two things. One is, are you collaborative, because you rarely do projects alone. Okay. Second piece of it is are you outcome driven? Are you driving towards a goal? And can you explain that goal, how you did it? And failures always happen. And did you learn from failures? And those are the things that we generally look for in terms of aptitude and things that come to. So what I would say is that always project your passion for technology, and explain the things that you have done through the curriculum. Now, if you have the skill set like Java, Go, React, even better, like it just makes you stand apart. But there are some fundamentals that you need to make sure when you are hiring from school.
Some of the key words being used by Pooja and Suresh, I was making a note of. In fact, those came in a flow, but that's very critical for the potential job seekers to kind of keep that in mind. The articulation skill and the aptitude. I would add a couple of more. The drive towards getting things done, the fire in a belly, right? That is something any hiring manager will look for. So the product of my nature, it's the one I'm dealing with is like will deal with both the mainframe world and the distributed world. So my hiring always varies. My requirements are a core mainframe requirements. At one point, I will come and hire the persons for key modern software and technology. So I talk about assembler, COBOL, JCL, and stuff. And on the other hand, talk about all modern tools, starting from Java to Python to end-to-end automation and all that. So based on your background and profile, your ability to articulate your past life and past project, and at the same time, as Pooja quoted, it's not necessary that you will have an answer for every question or every technology that I'm talking about, but that drive and the interest that you show, part of that discussion. Let's say, like if it is a 1 hour meeting, right? Broadcom, like we don't have a work from home concept, and so virtual interview and all that is very minimal. So we bring the persons for a face-to-face conversation. So in that case, like how you kind of represent yourself and how much you are driven, that is being closely watched, both in the screening level as well as in the technical rounds of discussion.
Yeah, I would say similar for Kyndryl. I think initiative is something that we really look for when we're seeking candidates, and of course having a base knowledge of Python and React and Node and this, having whatever area you might be interviewing for. I know for our internship program we have a couple different tracks, but showing initiative in your skill development, even if it is informal through LinkedIn Learning. That's something we actually really care about a lot when we're looking at resumes, and also throughout the actual interviewing process as a whole too. And I think, and I think what you can convey from what you've learned from your past projects is super important. Even if you haven't had an internship before or you haven't had much related experience, speaking to your project work, those teamwork abilities that that everyone else here mentioned is huge. And speaking to the projects that you've done, it doesn't always have to be your final thesis of your senior year to talk about a project. It could be a midterm project that you did the second semester of your sophomore year, but if you had a great impact on that project, or if you learned a lot of skills in that one project, then that's fine. Because on our end, we care more about the skills that you learned rather than like exactly what project was that, when was that in your academic career. So I think, those pieces are really important to convey, especially when I think a really big thing for us that we care about and we I've seen a lot of our technical folks ask is, tell me about a time you failed. And we want to know, like a big motto for us is fail fast. If you know it's not going to work, just let it not work and keep it moving. What did you learn from it? And how are you going to do what you're doing better next time? So if you can learn how to convey that information, I think that will really be incredibly helpful through a tech career.
Great. This is all really great information. Next question I want to ask, and whoever wants to jump in can jump in. How detailed should someone be when they're explaining their technical projects?
I would say that at least what I have seen is that because the interviews are not long enough to go into very deep technical details in the beginning, right? Because you want to be able to touch upon, the interviewer, the technical interviewer wants to touch upon different parts of the ecosystem, not just one topic. So I would suggest that when you get a technical question, answer it in a crisp way, right? And if needed, if question a little bit more about how did you come up with this answer, or why did you have to do this, then follow it upon with the explanation. That helps because the quality, the next question is determined by the answer to the first question, right? So if the first question is taking too long to get, if it's taking too long for us to get the answer, it becomes very difficult to follow it up with all the questions and finish all the topics. So so Jennifer, I would say that have the ability to break it down, but don't start it with that. Start it with the answer to the question. And then, yes, as a conversation, if there's something very interesting you want to put forth along with the answer, of course, otherwise let the conversation flow and let it go deeper, or maybe completely different topic, right? The interviewer might want to touch something completely different. So that would be me.
I can probably add to it. I think what I'm summarizing what Pooja is saying is like you have a limited amount of time, so you have to be crisp with your answer. But if you cannot be glossing over the question, and if the interviewer feels like he needs to dive deeper into something, then you need to be able to go down the roots of it and say, hey, this is what I did. But the initial thing, one of the tools that has always helped me is in any one-on-one conversation is, you guys probably learned it as what is called as a situation and a behavior and an outcome. So you can always say, this was the situation, this was what I did, and this is my outcome of this, and then branch out from there. So that if you think about answering questions that way, the person who is perceiving the answer gets, oh, this was a situation, this was what you did, what your contribution was, so this was what the final result. There was a failure, I learned from it, I went back to it, will help it. But wherever, if you see the person probing you, it is for a reason, like they are interested in some aspect of it. Be engaging about that aspect of it and not be afraid to gloss over that. That would be almost a red mark at that point of time if somebody is probing you and you're not responding back to it. But if you keep your answers too long, the person may not get enough about you, they just may not know who you are. That's what I would add.
So I certainly agree to that. In fact, you might be, as a potential candidate, addressing a multicultural, multi-ethnic panel, interview panel, and you, as part of how you explain your project, if that is the question of your past life, or the kind of the project that you dealt with, ensure that you understand the answer what you are giving. You are clear with what you are talking about. You size it. You size your answer, and you put the punctuation where you want to put that. So because that's where the next question is going to lead to. So if you have certain things of, because you cannot, time is limited, and you cannot explain everything in a single flow, and you want to make that discussion very interesting, so that create that punctuation and ensure to bring that punctuation at the right point so that the leading question takes you to that next critical path that you have taken, the challenges that you have faced or failed, and what was your learning, right? That will allow the situation to kind of have that conversation. That is very critical.
I think I agree with everyone here. From my time working at universities, I think we used to always recommend people kind of use the STAR method, which is situation, task, action, and result. I just posted a quick link in there in the chat regarding that kind of method of answering an interview and question. I think that can be really helpful for a technical interview sometimes because it's really easy to get in the weeds, especially if you're really passionate about a certain language or a certain area or a certain project that was like your heart and soul. So I think it can help people in general stay on task with like, okay, did I talk about the situation? Did I talk about what I had to solve, action that I took, and the result? I feel like a lot of the times people will explain a situation and the action that they took, but might forget the result too. So I think it's really helpful to kind of think about this this methodology of answering an interview question when it comes to that technical piece too.
That's great. Yeah, the STAR method always is a good way to kind of keep it in check, so you're not going too far down the path. The next question I wanted to ask you guys is about the process. And so in your process, I know we talked about you have like a screening interview, then you have your technical interview. Do you have typically real-time coding assignments, or how do you test one's technical knowledge in your process? How should someone approach those if there is that type of real-time coding assignment, if you have any tips on that?
Sure. And I think it's going to be very different for each of our teams. Even within Broadcom, I think each team does it differently. And now we have representation from Kyndryl and Apex. So I think it's, I would love to learn how they do it. But I can tell you that for my team, the first round is like the initial screening, setting the right expectations and explaining about the position, explaining about the company, what they're going to encounter in the next rounds. That's the initial screening. And it lasts for about 30 minutes. And during that time, I also ask them for what would be a good time for them, what kind of interview schedule works for them, right? For some, a block of 2 hours, 30 minutes each, meeting with 4 different people works best. For some, they're like, I cannot allocate a 2-hour block, so I would want the 30 minutes, every lunch hour through the week. So we are flexible as to how we schedule that. But the next 4 rounds are usually the technical rounds. And so I would say that out of the 4, we try to touch upon different aspects of UI development and UI lifecycle. One particular interview does have coding exercise, and I think this is very useful to know, because I think this is the most used way of interviewing somebody's or identifying somebody's technical capabilities in a very short span of time, in 30 minutes. To do that, what we do is we show a code on the screen, and we tell them that there's something wrong in this code. It's very short. It's very few lines of code. They don't have to write any code. They have to identify what the problem is in the code, because it's not doing what it's expected to do. And they should tell us how they would correct it if it was them. So it's not a blank sheet of paper and they have to start from the scratch. There's already some code there and identifying the mistake. So that's been one pattern that has been helping us identify, at least the thought process. When somebody looks at the code, they're like, okay, this is the variables, you're setting it there, then you're going here. You can hear them out. We tell them to, talk aloud. We hear them out, even though the answer is, some answers are correct, some are not, doesn't matter actually, because what we are looking for is how they're breaking down the problem, how they're getting to the point. And so I would say that while the students are preparing for technical interviews, debugging skill, able to understand the problem in your own code, or when you see the code of your friend and you're able to identify why there's an error and why it's not working, is an important skill that you don't necessarily understand in the beginning, but That's a very important skill to learn. So the more you practice for identifying issues and being able to solve them, you'll hone that skill.
I think it is very similar, like just like the elements of these things are very similar. Some of the organizations may have more rounds of interviews, or the format. One of the things that generally we do is, first of all, our recruiters will have a a first assessment of the candidates in terms of skill set, fit, and all that. And there'll be one lead interviewer, mostly from the and that would be doing a lot of aspects of the fit and whether the candidate is meeting the right positions. Um, uh, we will have, in majority of cases, we'll have a coding test that is administered beforehand. But the technical interviews are usually either, depending upon your level, one person would focus on design and the other one would be more of the coding side of things. But overall, none of these are by itself a deal breaker. Like it's the collective of all these things that makes it your design skills, how you think about things, more than a particular code that you solved, um, is overall looking at. And the other aspect of it is how successful you would be within the organization, because each organization has its own culture, its own list of values, and that is also measured collectively by everybody. So each of us give our feedback, and if there are some discussion we need to have post interview, we have that discussion and say that, hey, this is where the feedback kind of needs to get discussed a little bit more, and that's how it does. Like it's very similar for most folks.
Exactly, I agree. It's more or less only the brands are different, managers, and the expectations are almost same. So, of course, the technical rounds, it may vary based on the technology and stuff. I go the mainframe kind of profile. I go for two levels of technical discussion. Certainly, there are coding challenges, as earlier mentioned about debugging skill, because there are a lot of refactoring opportunities. So how detailed you are, that we look at, and best practices. What is that you learned from your school, or a kind from the past life? And that so we intentionally will have a refinable code put together for the person to go through and then give their recommendations. Of course, the expectation may not be of 100% pure code, refined code, but we will look at their approach and thought process. And earlier we talked about that articulation skills and all that stuff. That will certainly help them even in the coding challenge of their thought process of why they have approached it in this way. So that's very, very, some people may be amazing in coding, but if they cannot articulate it, this may have some difficulty in decision making. But as Suresh mentioned, it's not hard kind of break altogether. Like the panel will have a final conversation, and even when we have a doubt and questions, we will connect with the candidate to get that clarified, or the expectation set and all that stuff. That always happens.
Nah, I don't have too much more to add to that. That was all encompassing.
Okay, great. And so let me ask you to kind of expand on what kinds of questions do candidates ask you, or what kinds of questions should they be asking the interviewers?
Let me go first. I have this in my mind. So when you have, when there is an interview call and stuff, you just do your little math around the organization and the project and stuff. What is that you are interviewed for and stuff. I have both experiences. Some candidates comes with detail level of information. In some, I don't have much idea of. They go to that level of detail, and ask about the organization and the related product integration opportunities and all that stuff. At times I feel so odd. They have more topics to discuss. But I would recommend to do a little research around the organization, the project that you are kind of getting interviewed for, then bring that related question. And that might create a lot of curiosity based on the flow of entire conversation, that technical screening level discussion, that will allow you to create a question to have that conversation with the panelist of what they think, or what is the question you have and you wanted to get that clarified. So doing a little research around the project about the organization is certainly critical.
I can probably add, I think basically Shiva stored the aspect of like do a little research on the company that I would always say is a like the role you are applying for. You are interviewing the company as much as the company is interviewing you. So what you need to understand a little bit more is you need to go prepared about what is the role you're getting into, what is this organization, what is its values, that you think, does that fit to my strength? And if it fits to my strength, then the job doesn't feel like a job. If it doesn't, then you're trying to fit like square peg in a round hole. So there is that aspect of it. What I would say is that the most important thing to ask is, and no question is like related to your job specification. If you have a clarification, you should ask it. But always ask some strategic questions like what is what are the goals of the organization, like the goals of your particular team, like what are you trying to achieve out here? That's a very strategic. But there is also very tactical questions like, as a developer, what is my expectations day to day? So there is these two aspects of it. You can mix these things and see a measure of, like, your idea is to get an idea how the organization will be for you, and would you be successful there? So just mix up some of the very tactical questions about, like, how does the work behave, or how does people interact, anything from how, like, what is the extracurricular activities that happens, to very strategic things like what is the goal of the company, what is the goal of the organization. You should just a couple of questions that should cover the strategic side of it.
No
Right.
question is dumb question, right?
I feel like as a candidate, you have to have questions. You probably want to know things too, right? So it's your chance to ask. I definitely put more judgment on somebody not asking a question than asking any other type of question. But I think it's helpful to also ask about like potential career paths, to show that you're interested in staying with the company for more than just a limited amount of time. And also, I think it's important to do your research, absolutely. But I would also do your best to not ask a question that you can easily find the answer to on the internet. So where, if it's, sometimes I have heard people state like an answer that is like clear as day in our mission statement, so like things like that you might just want to be aware of too. Yeah.
One question that I most get asked always is, what do you like about the company, right? So they ask me, what do I like about working in Broadcom? So, and I think the reason I get asked that question is they want to see what are the strengths of working there, and they want to see if that's what they connect to, right? So I like that question because then we have a conversation further about, are those the important things that they are seeking for, or and things like that. So that's one question. The other question is, I think it was Suresh who had mentioned it, that what does my day look like, right? If for somebody who's going to be hired in this position, what's their typical day like? What do you expect them to do? I think that gives an entire picture, not just the job description. The job description gives you a certain amount of details, but the day-to-day job is different. You cannot encompass that completely into a job description. So asking that question just opens up, it makes it makes the scope of conversation much broader now. It's not just very narrowed down to what is on your resume or what's on my job description. It just opens up different gates. So I think that's a good conversation to have as well.
That's great. That's a really good suggestion. All right. So the next thing I wanted to ask is, if you have a candidate that doesn't have the exact technical expertise or experience, but they know something similar, how should they address that? What do you think would be the best way for them to handle something like that?
So I think it's always, I would expect candidates to say very honestly that, hey, this is not what I have done, but here is something similar. Being very honest in terms of how you approach it would go a long way in terms of having that rapport with. But try as much as to correlate. We all mentioned, like, none of your answers in a particular area is a deal breaker that says, like, if all the other areas seems to be very strong for that particular candidate. So being able to correlate, the main thing we are looking at is, did the person have the grit for that particular job, and how was their problem solving, how was their collaboration, and were they outcome driven or goal driven. So if you are able to show that in a similar kind of project and be able to correlate the jobs, I think that is a very legitimate answer to give. You may never find the exact match at all.
I would say that if a particular question, or if a few questions are not being answered to the expected level of the interviewer, it's still okay, as long as the answers for the other questions, for the rest of the questions, are demonstrate the understanding of the concept, right? Sometimes it's being able to articulate the concept that right? Because that's the hardest part, actually, because you could be very good at coding, you could just do all of that, but being able to answer a concept until you know it, you really cannot articulate it back, right? So that's what I would say is, it's okay. Don't get nervous. Don't panic if you do not know the right answer to a question. If you don't know, that's absolutely fine. But the ones that you know, make sure you are giving a strong, explanation and giving the apt answer for it. And that would be my suggestion for students. But as you grow in your career paths and as you go to higher levels, I think being able to answer most questions in that interview panel becomes important, right? Because you should have more exposure and more depth. But as a student, when you're starting off in the initial levels of the job, don't panic, don't stress out. It's okay. The one that you're not able to answer, you can be honest and just say that you have not come across it, or you don't know how to explain it. But the ones that you know, just do that well.
I think it's mostly answered. I think being honest, and if you wish to attempt, as in the lack of experience, but still, if you wish to attempt, please mention and try to do that as part of the discussion. That's a critical thing. But yeah, that answerable. And everything is based on the position that you are hired for. So it depends. If the requirement, the technical role is on the higher side, then the expectation will be completely on the other way.
I think another thing to address too is, as long as you're being honest, if you don't have direct experience in that area, but you have some experience in a similar area and you can learn that experience, you can speak to your ability to learn, and perhaps also speak about a time that you've learned something else quickly that is somewhat related to. So you could also kind of pivot with that as well.
Okay, great. So we talked a little bit about this, but I wanted to talk about some of the soft skills. So things like critical thinking and communication and teamwork. And so in terms of interviewing candidates, how important are those things? And how do you as an interviewer evaluate for those things?
I think for us, it is very important. I mean, we have one team, our mainframe team usually hires mainly on soft skills because we know that we know that our interns aren't coming in with a ton of mainframe experience. So for some positions, it's kind of the main thing we're looking for. And especially within an environment that we're in, where we're constantly working with different types of accounts on different types of problems that require different solutions, critical thinking and communication skills are premier. So if we sense that you're going to struggle in an area with communicating, we're almost always going to ask about teamwork ability and your own resourcefulness. I think it also goes a really long way too, because if you're able to show how resourceful that you can be, then I think that's less handholding that people need to do. So they really appreciate that ability to to do the work on your own, to teach yourself and to continue to learn.
Same in my team as well, that team collaboration, communication skills are essential, right? And that's secret that nobody tells you when you're just beginning, just out of college, because everybody emphasizes on the technical aspects of it, programming code, and nobody explains that actually the interviewers, what they're looking for is somebody who can come and be a part of the team, right? Help the team grow while they are growing, because technical skills are easy. I mean, I know I'm making it too easy, but compared to the behavioral skills that need to be learned, the technical skills are easy to teach, right? You go for a 3-month course, go for a 6-month course, you at least know the outcome of it, if you have the aptitude to do it. But attitude comes very hard, right? So I think in all of every interviewer, be it technical rounds also, they're looking for more of some skill in terms of communication, how they're able to put forth their ideas forward. In the screening interview, and we've all the technical interviews, interviewers gave me a thumbs up. Then towards the end, what we are also, one of the questions that we also ask to understand this is what challenges they have faced in their most recent project, and once they start talking about the challenge, we talk about how did you resolve it. So how did you, how did you overcome that challenge? That gives, and no matter if the challenge is very small or large, doesn't matter the size of the challenge, but what they felt and how they overcome it, that I think explains a little bit of their journey in terms of team and communication. And if the candidate is constantly complaining about the team and how he or she couldn't get their work done because of the team, it kind of indicates, we will ask a follow-up question: was there any other challenge? And that kind of sums up to know if they hold those skills that are important for the team that we have.
So yeah, a couple of things to add. Like, the industry is kind of driving in the agile mode. Of course, agile being well known these days. Like we as a manager saw the waterfall model even before now the agile world. So the attitude of failing fast, and how easy or how good you are in the failing fast and not doing the same mistake, or doing different mistakes to fail fast. That's not also an expectation. So fail fast and learn from there. Then how you correct it and how you are moving on. That's something is a critical requirement in this agile world. Along with the agile as a kind of ideology, agile ideology, the expectation is, so it's the development, let's say the development team, and you being part of the development team, the gone are the days that, oh, okay, I am the developer, I'm expected to do only this, or I will deliver only this. I cannot, don't expect me to do XYZ and stuff. So that's not the industry's expectation. So Even like in my organization, like the developers becoming a QA engineer at the time of a need based on the deliveries. Swarming is something that we really expect. How fast you internalize a customer requirement and change your role to meet the product requirement and success. So being flexible is also very, very critical. So it's not every day you will have that kind of opportunity, but you embrace that kind of opportunity is something, an expectation. And that's where the industry is moving towards.
Yeah, I can add a few things that because we have covered most of the aspects of it, and fairly the value statement for soft skills is also very similar. Some things that I would say is, one is initiative. Like, do you have the initiative, which counts as leadership? Can you pick up something when nobody else is picking it up because you see this is the right thing to do? Collaboration, people look at, because we are not looking for just an individual star. We might be for a particular very limited but kind of role, but generally 95% it is the team that makes or breaks a project, and seeing that collaboration. Communication is important because collaboration does not happen without, if you're not able to communicate effectively back and forth. And then other things like perseverance and grit all apply. The things that kind of you need to watch for is where, just like Shiva mentioned, is if you do not show that ownership, and some of the answers reflect the lack of ownership, that may seem like a amber or red light, for interviewers. The second aspect of it is, if you don't seem like very collaborative in some of the school projects, that without where you some of the answers reflects a lack of collaboration, that could be considered as somewhat of as not being successful in this particular organization. So there are some points where, but generally we can always count that. Do you have the initiative? Do you have the technical aptitude? Do you have collaboration? And can you communicate well? Mm, those are the things that we can put standard buckets and say that these are the things that anybody is looking for, somebody who is ideal. And then also, how quickly can you learn, because technologies will change, and so how quickly can you learn, how quickly can you adopt?
Okay, well, we're going to have just a few minutes left. So with that same note of, we've talked a lot about the things to do to prepare. What are some big don'ts, right? If you can think of anything outside of just the last idea of not showing ownership or not showing that you've been able to have that collaboration piece. Is there anything else that you can think that would be, a big no-no for a student in an interview?
Since I started with the no, I can finish with the no's.
Okay.
One is I think what I would say is that being not communicating about being on interviews on time, is a big aspect of somebody is interested in the job. Sometimes the candidates may have other, communicate early on with your recruiter or person you are communicating, saying that, yeah, I may not be able to make this at this time because of my school project. Just last minute reschedules and things like that, because there's a lot of people being coordinated. That would be the biggest no. And I would say the lack of your interest, your enthusiasm is always a positive, and a lack of that in an interview, where it shows up as it's more better if you are not interested in the job to not do the interview and create an impression of okay, I really didn't want to be here. So those are the two things that would get me in terms of not being able to meet some of the coordination deadlines and schedules and all that, or communicating about it, or or once you are there, like you should project that you're there because you really want this job.
One thing I would say is don't close the doors on opportunities, right? When there is a conversation about, I mean, I've had this happen and, we didn't even want to take it forward, is right now in the industry, the front-end developers who are developing and writing code to have to make the web applications also perform testing of the applications. It's as much part of your job, and sometimes when one developer develops it, the other developer tests. The reason I'm bringing it here is it's a no if you say that no, that's not my job. That's somebody else's job. My job is only this. So don't close the doors. Don't presume that, or you can always express saying that your interest lies in that area, and that is what you want to pursue. But sometimes it's all of us are in the business, right? And in the company, the policies, the market, everything determines, right? I do things of my interest, but I also have to do things as per business needs. So be open. Don't close the doors when somebody is bringing up a conversation about a need that's not of your interest. The reason they're bringing it up is because maybe that role has some aspect of it. So have a conversation about it. That could be a place to ask questions about why they're doing it that way when the market is doing differently, or if you're knowledgeable about it. But I would say don't completely shut off the conversation and say that I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do it. Those are not the answers you would want to give to an interviewer.
Yeah, they summed it up. I think I don't have much to add to that, and that's certainly right. Keep the doors open, be flexible, and that's where the industry is leading towards. So, and yes, your core competency and interest is on certain area, but at the same time, you can complement on somewhere you have a strength as there as well. That's the area to play. So keep that kind of informed to that interviewing panel. So you have more opportunity now. So do that.
Yeah, and definitely you want to convey that you want the job. I think that goes a long way. For this was the first year we really experienced, I think, people using AI to make their resumes. And I think it's a really important thing to note that you really shouldn't list things that you've done that you haven't done. People will be able to tell and ask those types of questions, and it just makes for like a very awkward situation. And then and it also kind of makes the school look bad, so it tarnishes lots of people's reputations when you don't put true things on a resume, even if AI is potentially telling you that that's what you should put. And I'm not saying don't put things that you are learning how to do. Like, it's still good to put, I love when people put their knowledge level about a specific language, where it's like learning, working knowledge, proficient, really stand by what you mean when you say those things. I think oftentimes people will just say proficient because it's like the thing to say. But we personally take more notice when people indicate the levels that they're at with the different type of technical skills that they have, because if you say that you know Python, then we're going to expect you to know Python. But then if you tell us that you don't know how to make a chart in Excel, then that is going to be a clear disconnect, So I think that's a huge thing that is a really big turnoff for us. But all really great information that everyone else shared too. I second that.
I just want to thank you all so much. This has been really valuable information to help our students prepare for these types of interviews, and really insightful as to what the process is like and the things that they should be aware of. So I really appreciate all of you coming on. Thank you very, very much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thanks for the
Thank you.
All the very
Yeah,
Nice
it's
to
a
be
great
here.
opportunity. Thank you.
Nice meeting everyone.